What is good, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wrestling with Fans podcast. This is a pro wrestling podcast created by fans for fans from a fan's perspective. My name is Kyle. This is episode 203, and what could arguably be the biggest story in wrestling history: Vince McMahon retires. I'm still in shock. I'm recording this Sunday evening, the 24th of July. The announcement was made on Friday, the 22nd. It's been over 48 hours since the announcement, and I am still honestly completely blown away and still kind of shook. A lot of news regarding Vince. Now, I'm going to give some of my thoughts on Vince. I'm going to thank Vince. To me, this is a thank you, Vince kind of podcast. Now, there are so many things you can say about Vince McMahon, and there's a good amount that aren't good. Of course, obviously, with the whole investigation by the board on the hush money and sexual misconduct, Rita Chatterton, who has just recently resurfaced again. So many things. So I'm not here to talk about the bad. There's a lot of things to talk about the bad, and a lot of people are going to talk about the bad. I'm just going to talk about some of the good stuff. That's how I want to handle this show. Is more of a thank you, Vince kind of deal, as opposed to a crucifixion of Vince. And we'll just leave it at that. Plus, we're going to give the most recent up-to-date SummerSlam card because that comes to us next Saturday. So I will try to do a live stream next Saturday for the pre-show, maybe part of SummerSlam. We'll watch it. But next week's show will be the SummerSlam review, since I'll be able to record on Sunday after SummerSlam has aired. So we'll record that next Sunday. So episode 204, be on the lookout. That's going to be the SummerSlam review coming next week. But we're going to be talking again. We're going to talk a lot about Vince tonight and all kinds of other stuff. But before we get into that, let's take a quick moment to go over some, the laundry list of stuff I do at the top of the show. Let me just interrupt myself here for a quick moment. First off, thank you for checking out Wrestling with Fans here on YouTube. If you're enjoying what you see, make sure to leave a big old thumbs up and click that subscribe button down below. The other ways you can help support the show is to follow us across all of our other social medias. Check us out, facebook.com/Wrestling with Fans. Hulk smash that like button to keep up to date with everything going on here with Wrestling with Fans. Or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wrestling with Fans. Check us out on the web at WrestlingWithFans.com. New audio shows go up every single Sunday at midnight. Or you can take us on the go, download us to your favorite podcast, the listening device. You can get us wherever you get your podcast fix. Just search Wrestling with Fans Podcast. We are on all the major platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Wherever you get your podcast fix, you can find Wrestling with Fans. Last but certainly not least, comments, questions, feedback, topics you want covered on the show, shoot me an email, wwfshow@gmail.com. Again, that's wwfshow@gmail.com. Links to everything are down in the video description and down below, so make sure you check that out. Without further ado, back to the show. The brand new social media commercial from Wrestling with Fans. I recorded that last week, and that was pretty cool. Instead of repeating it every week, I decided to record it. That way I can kind of throw it in whenever I want during shows, streams, and all that fun stuff. Yeah, so tonight on this episode, we're going to, like I said, we're going to talk about Vince. We're going to run down the SummerSlam card. There's 8 matches as of now. This is the go-home week, so tomorrow is the go-home edition of Raw. Then, of course, Friday, the go-home edition of SmackDown. So there might be some more stuff added, but as of now, we're sitting at 8 matches. We'll talk about that later on in the program. But let's go ahead and kind of dive right into Vince. So here's what we know for sure. Vince McMahon at age 77 has stepped down as he's basically retiring from all of his positions in WWE. As he obviously has stepped down as the chairman of the board. He is also stepping down as CEO, and he is also stepping down as head of creative. Now, during the investigation, Vince had stepped down to make Stephanie the temporary chairwoman of the board, but he still held on to creative control. But now apparently this is, and it's not a work, he is not only taking all of his corporate duties away, also his creative duties. Stephanie will remain the chairwoman of the board, and Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan will serve as co-CEOs, which should be an interesting dynamic. Nick Khan quickly moving up to the second most powerful person in WWE, arguably the first most powerful person. He's been on a fast track since joining the company not that long ago. Also announced Friday before that, it was announced a few hours earlier, that Paul Levesque, a.k.a. Triple H, has resumed his role, taking over the Executive Vice President of Talent Relations. He held that role previously. That role was most recently held by John Laurinaitis, who has also put on leave. And with this, announcement that Triple H is resuming that role, I assume this is the end of Johnny Ace. I fully expect Johnny Ace to be done with WWE once and for all. A lot of this investigation has not only centered on Vince, but John Laurinaitis as well. So it'll be really interesting to see if there's any repercussions from this whole investigation from the board of directors. And also an interesting note, which I'll talk about when actually, I guess we can talk about this. It's right now about Brock Lesnar apparently walked out and then showed up at the end of SmackDown on Friday night. Brian Alvarez was the first to drop that Brock apparently, paraphrasing here, basically said, if he's gone, then I'm gone, and left SmackDown like between 5 and 6 o'clock that evening, just a few hours before the showtime. And, of course, if you watched SmackDown this week, you saw Brock Lesnar made a surprise appearance at the end attacking Austin Theory. And I'm guessing, Brock, cooler heads prevailed, and Brock returned, did his duty, because I know there for a few hours people were speculating that it could be Goldberg versus Roman at SummerSlam, and thank you, Brock, for coming back to save us from another Roman versus Goldberg match. I don't even want to see Roman versus Brock at this point, but at least it's going to be better than Roman versus Goldberg. I'm confident in saying that. But again, we'll talk about the SummerSlam card later on this evening. But again, the giant news: Vince stepping away. Now, like I said, there's a lot of bad things you can say about Vince. And I'm sure those will be talked about ad nauseum by other people. I'm going to try to stay on the positive for this show. Maybe down the road, we'll talk, some negative things about Vince and Vince's legacy. But for now, I'm going to stay on the positive because Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Mr. McMahon, him and his creations have had more of an impact on my life than most people that I actually know in real life. And I'm sure there's a lot of wrestling fans out there, whether you want to admit it or not, that that's actually the case. That Vince, professional wrestling at WWE, has had more of an impact on our lives than, coworkers or friends we've known for a long time. When you're a lifelong fan like I am and like a lot of you guys are, you're just kind of, wrestling is in your blood. Like, you just love professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. We're just going to say, for the sake of this show, we're going to stay with pro wrestling because I'm a pro wrestler guy. But, without Vince McMahon, here's some things that we would not currently know without Vince McMahon. We would not know professional wrestling the way we do now. There's a chance that it may still be in the regional territories. There may be, 20 or 30 good-sized promotions across the country. Each have their own territories like it was before Vince kind of took everything national and then global. We would not know Hulkamania the way we know Hulkamania. Hulk Hogan had Hulkamania before. We wouldn't know Hulkamania, and we would not know Hulk Hogan the way we know Hulk Hogan without Vince McMahon. That's just plain and simple. There would be no Stone Cold Steve Austin without a Vince McMahon. We would not have gotten arguably the greatest feud in the history of professional wrestling, Austin versus McMahon. That was just some of the greatest TV for, well over a year. Those two guys, just great storytelling. It was, you wanted to tune in every week on Raw to see what Steve would put Vince through that week. It was literally must-see TV. Without Vince McMahon, we'd have no Undertaker. We'd have no Shawn Michaels. We'd have no Triple H. Probably no Macho Man Randy Savage the way we know Macho Man Randy Savage. Vince and his vision, there'd be no WrestleMania, no Royal Rumble, no Survivor Series. There's so many things that Vince brought to the table for pro wrestling that, 200 years from now, our great 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 grandkids will be able to appreciate things in pro wrestling because of stuff Vince McMahon did well before their time. His legacy, he will go down as the biggest influence in the entirety of pro wrestling. I don't care how long pro wrestling lasts in the future, no one will have as big an impact as Vince McMahon. And, there's so many fun things. Like I don't want to go down too big of a rabbit hole because I could think of so many great moments with Vince. Like I remember when I first started watching back in the early to mid 80s as a small kid, Vince McMahon was the interviewer and then commentator. He was obviously the owner of the company back then, but nobody, unless you were really in the know, knew that Vince was actually the owner of WWF. I always knew Vince as the voice of the WWF back in the day. It was Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura, Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon at times. But Vince and Jesse was like the first great commentary team that I remember. I know people that are older than me, probably their mid to late 40s or 50s or older, probably might say Gordon Soley. All respect to Gordon Soley, but for me, growing up, it was Vince and Jesse and Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. Those were the two. People my age and a little younger may go to Vince Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross, which they are arguably one of the best teams altogether. Even the WCW, when you had like Bischoff, Schiavone, Tenay. The crew over on Nitro, they had a great commentary team on Nitro too. But for me, it was Vince and Jesse's what I first started watching wrestling. And it was weird, like as I got older and I realized that Vince was the actual owner, I was like, wow, that's just kind of interesting. Like I never really knew it that way. And this was kind of in that era where you get to that certain age and you find out that wrestling is a work. Spoiler alert, sorry. Wrestling is a work. It's not a shoot. So when you find that out, and you find out like Vince is the owner, he's also the the commentator on the programming, kind of throws you for a loop. And it wasn't really until post Montreal Screwjob that Vince came on, basically put it out there that he was the owner and just didn't hide it anymore. Not that he really hid it before, but he didn't make it very public that he was the owner of the WWF. But again, there's so many cool moments. I'm just going to try to talk about a couple of them. There'd be no Monday Night Raw. Like we'd have no Raw, like the longest weekly episodic program in sports entertainment or in all of television, whatever they say for it. They're closing in on 30 years. Closing, here in about 6 months, it'll be 30 years of Raw. January 2023 will be 30 years of Monday Night Raw. That's insane. And I remember watching the first Monday Night Raw. I remember watching Primetime Wrestling. I remember watching All American Wrestling, where we kind of had the studio show. No, Primetime was a studio show. All American was like the round table kind of deal. I vaguely remember Tuesday Night Titans. And, of course, Superstars Wrestling Challenge of the weekends. That's what I lived for. As a kid was, Saturday morning cartoons till about, it was either between 10 and 11. Then you would switch over to another channel, and then you'd have Wrestling Superstars and Wrestling Challenge, the syndicated shows back to back. Just that's what you live for as a kid. And Vince was the commentator at the time. But I mean, the first real like big moment I remember with Vince, as far as like on screen stuff. Let's talk about some on screen moments here. Was the whole build up to the Montreal Screwjob where Bret Hart is giving Vince crap. Says this is bullshit. He's talking this, that, and the other. Is right after WrestleMania 13, I believe. Around the time of WrestleMania 13, and him and Vince get in this shoving match, and they're shoving, they're fighting. I'm like, wow, like that was like their first real indication that Vince was the actual owner of WWF. And of course, so many moments with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Bang 316 where he pissed himself in the ring. The beer truck is another thing. The cement in the Corvette. Visiting him in the hospital, hitting him with the fucking bedpan, which was also the birth of Mr. Sacco. But just that ding that I can vividly hear. I close my eyes and I can hear that bedpan dinging off of Vince's head. So many crazy things, Vince McMahon did over the years. And say what you want about the product in the last 10 to 15 years, that he's lost his touch. He's out of touch with today's fan, which, is all fair criticism. But again, without Vince, without his vision, without his driving force, without him devoting his entire life and his livelihood to professional wrestling, we would not have what we have today. We wouldn't have had a Monday Night War, because I doubt WCW would have tried to do anything big. They probably would have stayed as a regional promotion. We might not know ECW the way we do, because Vince helped keep ECW afloat for a long time before purchasing ECW. I'm talking like the classic ECW, like Hardcore Heaven 97, RVD, Jerry Lynn, Sandman, Raven, all that stuff, Tommy Dreamer. That like OG ECW before it was WWE ECW. There probably wouldn't be an AEW at this point without Vince McMahon to, drive and force to want, due to his missteps, it's a driving force behind the biggest competition that they have. I don't want to ramble too much. I don't want to go too much into it, but just overall, just thank you, Vince. Appreciate all your, lifetime of dedication to professional wrestling. Well, maybe not lifetime, but the majority of your lifetime, the last 40 couple years that I can personally remember that I've been alive, your dedication to professional wrestling, giving us untold hours of entertainment, so many great memories. Enjoy your retirement, and see you down that road. But that's that. The other quick point, the last thing I want to bring up here about Vince before moving on is, will Vince still have his finger in the pot? There's a lot of speculation whether or not Vince will still have some say. Vince is still the majority stockholder. That is not changing. He has not sold a stock. He has not sold anything. He is still the majority stockholder. So I have no doubt whatsoever that he will have the ear of Stephanie. He will have the ear of Nick Khan. He will have the ear of Triple H and everybody else. While he may not be in control, I could easily see him having some type of say or input towards the future of the company, especially over the next few years, and depending on himself. But so again, I'm in shock. I honestly thought I would never live to see the day of Vince retiring, that he would sit in gorilla position until he died. And even then, they probably tell him just to leave him in gorilla. Like, just keep putting him in gorilla and put a little tape recorder next to him with all of his things he says as the performers come through the curtain. But it's crazy to think that, Vince, there'd be WWE life after Vince, which, again, I never thought we'd live to see the day, but here we are. Let's take a quick commercial, talk about the social medias again for those who may have missed it earlier. And we'll be back talking about the future of Kevin Dunn and talking about SummerSlam 2022 this coming Saturday, only on the Peacock Network. We'll be right back. Let me just interrupt myself here for a quick moment. First off, thank you for checking out Wrestling with Fans here on YouTube. If you're enjoying what you see, make sure to leave a big old thumbs up and click that subscribe button down below. The other ways you can help support the show is to follow us across all of our other social medias. Check us out, facebook.com/Wrestling with Fans. Hulk smash that like button to keep up to date with everything going on here with Wrestling with Fans. Or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wrestling with Fans. Check us out on the web at WrestlingWithFans.com. New audio shows go up every single Sunday at midnight. Or you can take us on the go, download us to your favorite podcast, the listening device. You can get us wherever you get your podcast fix. Just search Wrestling with Fans Podcast. We are on all the major platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Wherever you get your podcast fix, you can find Wrestling with Fans. Last but certainly not least, comments, questions, feedback, topics you want covered on the show, shoot me an email, wwfshow@gmail.com. Again, that's wwfshow@gmail.com. Links to everything are down in the video description and down below, so make sure you check that out. Without further ado, back to the show. All right, coming back in here to the studio. Again, this is episode 203. Vince McMahon retires. But we're done with talking about Vince, at least for this episode. There's going to be a lot more Vince stuff, especially with the investigation by the board of directors on sexual misconduct and hush money payouts. We're not going to quit talking about Vince, because that's going to be in the news still. I'm sure the likes of Dave Meltzer, Wade Keller, Sean Ross Sapp, all those guys. I know I'm missing a lot. Shout out to all the dirt sheet writers. And yes, I said dirt sheet writers. Dirty sheets, ooh. that not going to play?
Dirty sheets. Ooh.
There we go. Thank you, Bobby. All right, let's talk SummerSlam, guys. SummerSlam takes place this coming Saturday. So if you're listening to this the week it drops, SummerSlam takes place July 30th from Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. And like I said earlier, there are 8 matches currently scheduled. We may get more on the go-home editions of Raw and SmackDown this week. I'm sure they'll probably try to make it about 10 matches, I would assume. 1 or 2 of those may end up on the pre-show, but let's run down the card as we know it right now. Up first, let's talk Logan Paul and The Miz. Of course, these guys teamed at WrestleMania this past year against Rey and Dominic Mysterio. They are now going to go 1-on-1. Should be an entertaining match. I was really impressed with Logan Paul at WrestleMania. And he's in the ring with one of the most consummate professionals in all of professional wrestling, The Miz. Underrated. Say what you want. Miz is one of the most underrated wrestlers in WWE history, in professional wrestling history. I love The Miz because he's awesome. Also on the card, we have Matt Riddle taking on Seth freaking Rollins. Seth finally getting to move on from Cody Rhodes, who, of course, is out with the torn pectoral muscle, but he's still making the rounds. He was at Comic-Con this week. And if you haven't checked it out, there's a video on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching the video version of this, check the channel. I talked about all of the Comic-Con releases from this week from Mattel and WWE. So many cool figures they have announced that will be coming out very soon. And if you're listening to the audio version, check out the YouTube channel in the audio notes down below. But Seth and Matt Riddle, this match I thought might never happen because of the history, the incident from a few years ago with Matt Riddle's wife at the time, making disparaging remarks about some of the ladies, including Becky Lynch. Of course, Seth taking an issue with those, and they had a little confrontation, but apparently they have smoothed things out enough to be able to work together at SummerSlam. I expect this to be a really fun match. We have 2 women's title matches on the card. First up, we have Bianca Belair defending the Raw Women's title against Becky Lynch in a match we've seen many times. And I hope this is just kind of like the final nail in the coffin for this feud. The underdog Becky's kind of been okay, but I kind of wish she'd go back to more the ass kicker, like the man version. Maybe not the man exactly, but something along those lines. I thought that was a much better character for her. And then we have a rematch from Money in the Bank. Liv Morgan defending the SmackDown Women's title against Ronda Rousey. I have no idea where they're going to go with this. I haven't been very impressed with Liv. I don't think they're going to make her lose in her first real big title defense. Going against Ronda Rousey. So it'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting how that goes. We also have a match for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Jimmy and Jay, the Usos, taking on Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford, the Street Profits. Double J, Jeff Jarrett, will be the special guest referee in the randomness of it all. Jeff Jarrett will be the referee for that match. We also have Pat McAfee taking on Happy Corbin. I'm excited to see Pat McAfee back in the ring. I'm not excited to see him take on Happy Corbin. That's kind of obvious there. For the United States Championship, Bobby Lashley is defending against the Mr. Money in the Bank, Austin Theory. And, of course, the main event, which there for a while on Friday, we weren't sure if this was actually going to happen. It is for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. It is a last man standing match. It is Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table, acknowledge him, defending the titles against the beast incarnate Brock Lesnar. I expect this match to be pretty much like all the others, 5 to 7 minutes tops. Basically, unlimited finisher is going to be on for that. It's shaping up. It should be a good card. Like on paper, it looks like a pretty good card. Hopefully the matches will deliver like they do on paper. But I'm looking forward to SummerSlam. Again, join me on YouTube on Saturday. Do a little stream beforehand. Any last minute news and rumors. Anything they may have popped up from those dirty sheets.
Dirty sheets. Ooh.
And of course,
emphasizes athleticism.
And for all. I miss using soundboards. I like having the soundboards now. Yeah. The last little thing I want to talk about real quick before I wrap up the show, Kevin Dunn, Bucky McBuckerston, as some of them call him. I don't know what, something Bucky something, because Kevin Dunn's got buck teeth. Now, I am curious if Kevin Dunn will stick around. He has been a Vince guy through and through for, I can't even remember however many years, but decades he has been a Vince guy. But his style of editing and cuts during a live broadcast is nauseating. You know, when you get like 40 cuts in a 30-second period, you're making too many cuts. I hope that he can step away. Like, I don't want to see anybody get fired, but he retires from that position, and they bring somebody in who can bring a new, fresh look to the WWE product. And with Vince going, I would assume, I believe, I've read, don't quote me on this, but Bruce Pritchard's going to take over creative. He's still a Vince guy. He's got a Vince vision. But I'm hoping Bruce, especially since being on the podcast with Conrad Thompson, is going to get maybe a fresh perspective, that he won't do the same old that Vince was running in the company. That we get some fresh creative, and maybe a fresh look on TV with maybe a new television director. But we'll see what happens. But guys, I think that is just about going to wrap it up. One more time before we go, check us out on the social medias, just like this. Myself here for a quick moment. First off, thank you for checking out Wrestling with Fans here on YouTube. If you're enjoying what you see, make sure to leave a big old thumbs up and click that subscribe button down below. The other ways you can help support the show is to follow us across all of our other social medias. Check us out, facebook.com/Wrestling with Fans. Hulk smash that like button to keep up to date with everything going on here with Wrestling with Fans. Or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wrestling with Fans. Check us out on the web at WrestlingWithFans.com. New audio shows go up every single Sunday at midnight. Or you can take us on the go, download us to your favorite podcast, the listening device. You can get us wherever you get your podcast fix. Just search Wrestling with Fans Podcast. We are on all the major platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Wherever you get your podcast fix, you can find Wrestling with Fans. Last but certainly not least, comments, questions, feedback, topics you want covered on the show, shoot me an email, wwfshow@gmail.com. Again, that's wwfshow@gmail.com. Links to everything are down in the video description and down below, so make sure you check that out. Without further ado, back to the show. All right, well, that's going to wrap everything up. All the social medias. If you're listening to the audio version, they're going to be in the audio description on your favorite podcast listening device. And, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up, subscribe. Everything is down in the video description below this wonderful video that you are watching. Trying to do something. I think this is going to be the new format. I'm going to video, audio, like a live recording of the podcast every week. I'll try to do more live streams, maybe do live streams of the podcast again like I have in the past. I really enjoyed those. The interaction I had with the guys and girls that were in the chat was always fun, and definitely want to get back into that. But not going to babble on too much longer, keeping the show about 30 minutes or less, which, just like a good Domino's piece coming in 30 minutes or less. But that's going to wrap it up this week. We'll see you this weekend for SummerSlam. And, of course, next week, episode 204, will be my full SummerSlam 2022 review. So, of course, stay tuned to the audio, to the website, to the YouTube channel for all that fun stuff. And, of course, across all the other social medias to find out when the live streams and all those things are. Whatever that ad nauseum. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Once again, my name is Kyle, and I will see you all next time right here on Wrestling with Fans.